What's up, guys? Yara's Vision 1 here, coming at you with something that I've been meaning to do since, oh lord, I don't know, 2008 or 9? When did I Love You, Beth Cooper come out? Whenever I Love You, Beth Cooper came out, this is about when the idea for this came about, and that it was to do a commentary for a movie that I really enjoyed, and I actually attempted it with I Love You, Beth Cooper before copyright and everything got in the way here. So, and this was the original movie I wanted to do, was Night of the Living Dead, and since it's in the public domain, which is weird, which that's probably the first bit of info I want to bring up about Night of the Living Dead here as we see the title, and that is when I went to go look for the movie on YouTube, excuse me, when I went to go look for the movie on YouTube that so I could download it and put my voiceover on it and everything. There was, of course, the public domain ones, and there was actually a version that you had to pay for on YouTube, which I found pretty funny, seeing how it's in the public domain. Like, why, it's one thing to, come out with DVD edition after DVD edition because, public domain, a Paramount can put out a copy of Night of the Living Dead, and so can, Universal at the same time, and not have to pay a dime for it. So I found it really funny that when I had to go look this up for it, I there was a pay version here, and that's one thing. That's another nice little piece of info here, is that this movie right here is one of the I think the most copies of like a DVD out there ever, or something like that. I think I read one time. I believe. Excuse me. That was gross. I think I read one time that there was at least 138 different DVDs of this. Sorry, I'm drinking a Coke Zero while I'm watching the movie here. Directed by George A. Romero. God rest his soul. But yeah, 138 different copies of it. And as you guys probably may or may not know, I own quite a few copies of the Night of the Living Dead movie. I mean, I have the colorized version. I have the 40th anniversary edition, or 50th anniversary edition. I think it's 40th, now I think about it, because it came out in the 60s, so maybe it was the 50s. I mean, maybe it was the 50th anniversary. I don't know, I can't remember. But that right there is probably my favorite edition of all of them, because the picture on it just looks spectacular, and then the features are on point. I love them. Probably my next favorite DVD edition would be the Millennium Edition, which that one actually took me a long time to get. Man, I should have did this when I had a clear throat. Excuse me. So what was I saying? DVD. Oh yeah. So the Millennium Edition actually took me a while to get, because I think at one point it was, I wouldn't say it was high priced, but it was hard for me to get. And I plus I own some and right now we're seeing the start of I guess I'm gonna try and not say the Z word through this, because that's what George Romero did. He never used the Z word, so I'm gonna try my best not to use the Z word. So good luck to me. But we just find out that the ghouls, as they become known of in this movie, are starting, and Johnny just turned off the radio to ignore it while they go visit their mother's grave. Is it their mother or their sister? You would think that as many times I've seen this movie, I would know that little detail. And just so y'all know, it's like almost 1 a.m. and I'm recording this. So yeah. Now, this was written by Romero and John Russo, and if the Russo name does not sound familiar, then it probably sounds more familiar if I said Return of the Living Dead, which is an entirely different franchise from the I guess Romero movies would be a better way, starting with Night here. John Russo actually wanted to make a direct sequel to Night of the Living Dead. Of course, before then we had Dawn of the Dead, and I think that's when, after that is when the idea that John Russo came up with was to make another Night of the Living Dead type of movie, and Romero didn't really want to do it, and they kind of went their separate ways, and that's how we got Return of the Living Dead, and that's essentially, in a way, how we got Day of the Dead, too. That kind of got Romero off his ass to go do another Dead movie, this one being Day, which just side note, that's out of the main three, because a lot of people, probably put Night, Dawn, and Day together, and yes, there's Land, Survival, and Diary, which I love Diary, but I'll probably mention that later. But out of those three, people kind of tend to lean towards Dawn and Night, and there is a small minority of people who enjoy the Day of the Dead. But just for me, I don't know, I thought it had an interesting concept, and there's actually a part in this movie that we'll get to later that I kind of think relates to the storyline in Day of the Dead, and we'll get to there later. That's way later in the movie. And here we go, Johnny here messing with Barbara and coming up with the famous "They're coming to get you, Barbara." Out of all the stuff in this movie, that is, there's a lot of movies I watch that I'll watch, and there's a line in there or a phrase in that movie that probably not a lot of people would realize, and probably a lot of people would skip over, and probably not a lot of people would pay attention to, and that's sometimes like my favorite part of that movie. This one right here, I would have never thought that "They're coming to get you, Barbara" would have been such, I guess, selling point of the movie. A lot of the merchandise, I think there's T-shirts, "They're coming to get you, Barbara," and there is Mr. Bill Heinzman, the first ghoul to ever appear in a Romero movie here. He actually comes back in the 30th anniversary edition, which is kind of despised amongst the Living Dead fans here, because good old Mr. John Russo, after doing the Return of the Living Dead series, which went on for 5 movies, but I think he was only involved in the first one. I think everything else he just kind of got credit on for characters, and probably not even characters, because there's only one recurring character in the Return of the Living Dead series, and it's Tarman, and he's only in, I think, 2 movies. No, 3 of them. He's in 3 of them. And Johnny just bit the big one. Now, when I first saw this as a kid, I didn't understand that Johnny died. I thought dude just knocked him out, but it wasn't until, later in the movie we find out that he is, in fact, dead. But yeah, what I was saying about Bill Heinzman here, running towards, and yeah, he is kind of running. He's not doing the whole lumbering thing yet, because he catches up to Barbara pretty quick here. And I guess this right here too, this is another part, instead of waiting until later, I can mention it now, and then I'll get back to the 30th anniversary edition. Right here, he's trying to get into the car, he's pushing, and he turns around. He's about to turn around here any second. He's trying to get in, Barbara's trying to fight it, and come on, where is it, so I can tie it in. Goes to the other side. Now, he thought to go to the other side. Quote, thought. I put that in quotations because that's going to relate to here. Turns around, sees a rock, and tries breaking into the car. Now, that kind of relates to Day of the Dead in a way, because in Day of the Dead, there's that whole storyline with Bud the zombie, where they're trying to, essentially, even though he's dead, he's zombified, and crap, I said the Z word. Oh well. I made it longer than I thought it would. He is still retaining some of life, like he's able to answer the phone and to use a gun, and I believe that's what he was kind of aiming for here with Bill Heinzman, because, I mean, later on you see some of the ghouls, we'll try not to say it again, some of the ghouls, just kind of walking around, not really knowing what they're doing, whereas Heinzman was aware, the Heinzman ghoul was aware enough to pick up a rock and try and bust it through the window. So that's kind of a nice little connection later on to Dead and what Romero was trying to say. And I think this fact has been talked to death on here, but I will mention it there. When Barbara just hit the tree with the car there, the car was already badly damaged. They filmed it in a way where it would look like the tree did the damage. It was already damaged. It was a car that was borrowed. So going back, since I think Heinzman's still lumbering around the areas, there's Mr. Bill Heinzman. The 30th anniversary edition, John Russo, 30 years after, Night of the Living Dead, so 1999. So the version I got is the 40th version. That's the one that I really like, the 40th anniversary edition. Really great. If you want any DVD version of Night of the Living Dead, I suggest the 40th anniversary edition. Anyway, so again, as Barbara runs to the house, I'll try and mention the 30th anniversary edition here. The 30th anniversary edition was one that Russo actually went back and filmed some extra scenes for, albeit unneeded. He filmed a storyline that kind of tried to explain why they're coming back from the dead more, when, I mean, it's kind of already in the movie here. I mean, they kind of mention it later during the TV scene. But it involved a priest, and the priest was bitten by a ghoul, and he wasn't turned into one. And Heinzman kind of, is part of that storyline, the first ghoul that we saw there. It's an interesting concept, and it was nice that, it was like one of those like A for effort type of things, but kind of like C plus on execution. Me personally, I can watch the 30th anniversary edition and kind of enjoy it for what it is. Is it anywhere near close to the perfection of Night of the Living Dead? Not even. But is it a good watch? I think so. Yeah, those parts that he inserted are kind of stupid, and he does change the soundtrack, which I remember the first time I was watching the 30th anniversary edition, and usually, like, sometimes the music, the score, doesn't really catch me. Don't get me wrong, I love some scores in movies. I think the Mona Lisa Smile score is fantastic. I think the score to Titanic is amazing. But sometimes it just kind of just goes underneath. It goes above my head. Like, I don't really pay attention to it. But the 30th anniversary edition to Night of the Living Dead is actually the first time I was just like, whoa, I hear a huge difference and I don't like it. It's one of those things you have to hear, but if you watch it, and if you watch this and then watch, if you've seen this as many times as I have and then watch the 30th anniversary edition, you're gonna know. Or if you watch them back to back, but I probably wouldn't suggest watching them back to back. The differences are very minor in that one. But I actually have two different versions of the 30th anniversary edition. I got the DVD one, the double disc DVD one, and the well, I wouldn't say double disc. It's one DVD and comes with the new soundtrack on the other disc, on CD, and the VHS version, which is really cool, really cool. And that's part of the reason why I started collecting different versions of Night of the Living Dead, was because, like, for instance, the Millennium Edition. The Millennium Edition has a parody of Night of the Living Dead called Night of the Living Bread, and that doesn't appear on every edition. So that was what was really my selling point for the Millennium Edition. And here we go. We're getting some more ghouls now. See, and there's another instance. See, he's looking. See, you see that little look he just gave? It's kind of like a look of just like, oh, my boys are coming. We're getting in there. So again, nice little tie-in to Day of the Dead. This part right here used to scare the hell out of me as a kid. Barbara going up the stairs, and then that right there, that used to scare the living hell out of me. Like, oh god, when I first saw this, like, you gotta understand, I actually saw Dawn of the Dead before I saw Night, and Dawn fucked me up royally. That was like horrendous to me, because like it terrified me, because one of the first memories, and there's Mr. Dwayne Jones as Tom there. But Dawn really terrified me. There was that part where the guy's head explodes, and Dawn, when they shoot it with a shotgun, and that was just, God, as a kid, that was horrifying. That movie just screwed with me royally. But the first time I saw Night, I actually remember the first time I saw Night of the Living Dead, my mom actually went to a Blockbuster Video. This is long before I worked there, long before she worked there. And this is when they were releasing VHSs with the Blockbuster Classic on the left side of the video, if I'm not mistaken. I think the only other two I've ever seen, I've seen Night of the Living Dead and I've seen Halloween that way. I don't think I've ever seen any other one. If they're out there, I haven't seen them. If those are the only two, then I've seen them both. But I remember she bought it because it was apparently relatively cheap, because otherwise she wouldn't have bought it. At that time, no, she wouldn't have bought it. So she was like, oh, you should watch it. It's scary, stuff like that. I think the first time I watched it, it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon when I first watched it. And, it was still scary to me. And it wasn't until the ending is what, like, was like one of my what I can really think of is one of my very first holy shit moments, you know. And you know, we'll talk about the ending when we get there. But now we've introduced oh, did I say Tom earlier? I meant to say Ben. That's what I meant to say. Tom is in the basement at the moment here, and we got Barbara, which you know, speaking of Barbara, I do want to mention another version of Night of the Living Dead, and that is the 1990 remake, directed by Tom Salvini, the makeup artist. That's another one that, like, I remember watching. That one I watched for the first time late at night on, like, Cinemax or Showtime, one of those channels. Maybe the movie channel. I think that's what it was, the movie channel. I don't know, one of those channels. One of those premium channels. And it was scary. It was getting. I was a little bit older. I think I was around like 12, 13, somewhere around that age when I saw the remake for the first time. Because I always knew of the remake. I used to always see it at the video store, but I would never, you know, I never rented it. You know, at that time I was more into renting Wayne's World again than I was anything else. Because at that age, you know, Wayne's World was like the funniest thing ever. But the remake, you know, it's very drastic. A very 180, so to speak, from the original, where you think Ben, played by Tony Todd in that one, who was spectacular. I love him as Ben in the remake. Is going to be the hero, where it turns out to be Barbara. And that's what, you know, George really wanted to do with the original here, was really make Barbara the hero. Wanted to, you know, like women empowerment and such like that. But it didn't really... I can't remember if it was his decision or somebody else's decision to not go that direction. I can't remember here. Can't remember offhand here. I'm kind of just doing this without any notes or anything like that. So, yeah, I think I'm doing pretty good so far. But, yeah, like I said, you know, and I respect Dwayne Jones tremendously for this role in this movie. Because you got to think, putting an African-American man in a leading role like this back in 1968, very, very ballsy. And that's another reason why you gotta respect Romero, because he wasn't afraid to go balls to the wall. And that's exactly what he did. He went balls to the wall with this one, because nobody in their right mind would probably put an African American man in the lead role of a film like this, you know, during that time, you know, with civil rights and everything. Because I believe, what was it, 1969 is when Martin Luther King was assassinated? So yeah, so Dwayne Jones, I respect him tremendously, but where I was trying to go with that is that I love Tony Todd in the remake, the first remake, I should say, the first remake, better. You know, I really enjoy his, and Mr. Cooper for that matter. Mr. Cooper, who is one of the people we'll meet later in this movie, he is in the remake, and I love his character in the remake so much. I mean, it's... And this right here, this scene kind of reminds me of the 1990 version, where Tony Todd shoves it in his face, but he yells up, "God damn you, all," and just Dwayne Jones didn't do that here. I guess that was a nice little touch for the remake. And that's another thing about the remake. You know, these days, when a remake is made, whether it be Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, or anything, you know, if you take a French movie and remake it in American, like you know, LOL with Miley Cyrus, for example, it's very rare that you have the original writer and or director at the helm. I think there's been a few instances where, like, the director, you know, directed both the remake and the original. I think that's very rare. Tom Salvini, like I said, directed the original, but George Romero actually helped with the script a lot for the remake, and I think he's got the writing credit for it. I think it's him and somebody else. You know, maybe John Russo. I'm not 100% off the top of my head. I'm not as knowledgeable on the remake as I am when it comes to night, dawn, and day. I'm not even that knowledgeable on day, you know, because like I mentioned earlier, it's not my favorite, you know, and now night I kind of put above everything else because, you know, it was the one that kind of got me in to the Romero universe. Like I said, I've seen Dawn before, but that's, you know, traumatized me. I mean, it was horrendous. Now I can watch Dawn of the Dead, and it's like, okay, this is a good flick. I can sit here and enjoy it, and I can look at all the stuff, and everything like that. Like I have the Dawn of the Dead Ultimate Edition, the 4 disc one, and there's like 4 different versions of the movie, and I probably watched all of them. I think the only one I didn't finish was the European one, because that was again one of those 30th anniversary moments where I noticed the soundtrack was a little different. It was a little weird, but that's not the reason why I didn't finish it. I think when you go through 3 discs of Dawn of the Dead, when you get to that 4th one, you're kind of Dawn of the Dead out. You know what I'm saying? And here we go, right here. This is where he's trying to hype Barbara up. Get her hype. Fight and everything. And this is this is. I think anybody who is a Dead fan, a fan of these type of movies. I'm not going to say the Z word again. I've only said it twice, was it, when I was mentioning Bill Heisman? But if anybody's a fan of it, you've had that conversation of like, what are you going to do if this happens? Like, everybody has their own plan. Me, I have different plans because if I'm out and about and I hear about this happen, then I have my plan for there versus where I'm at home, and I have my plan for here. So, but what Ben does is very smart, in my opinion. Yeah, they know they're inside, but yeah, he had a fighting chance, But given the severity of the issue, they could have been locked up in that house for days, weeks, months, even years. With barely any food, water, anything. Who knows how long there have been radio, television broadcasts, everything like that. So, but that's the first thing he did. He started looking around the house. He's looking for nails. He's looking for wood. He's trying to get Barbara's head in the game, so to speak. So it's not just him. It's not going to be 1 against all. It's going to be 2 against all, and then later on it becomes 3 and 4 and 5 against all. See right here, she's actually trying. She's terrified. She's lost her brother at this point. She's lost her brother at this point. So, at this point, she's trying to hype herself up. Ben's trying to get her hype in this area because they know that's the only way they're going to get out of it. If Barbara's going to fight, and that's exactly what Barbara does in the remake. Like that essentially comes up, and I've always liked this moment for some reason. Something really. I don't know. See, this is one of those moments I mentioned later where not a lot of people would sit there and be like, oh yeah, that moment with the music box? This is me. This is that moment for me where I'm just like, it's just a strange little moment that, like, I enjoy. The ironing board, which is great because, look at all the look at this. I would have never, like, if I were that dude, I would have never thought to rip that off and put it on the wall to help protect me, I would have never thought of that, which is part of the reason why I probably wouldn't last that long in a ghoulish apocalypse. I almost said it, but I stopped myself. Almost had me. But that's the thing. There's 2 different kinds of ghouls, like I said. There's the slow lumbering ones, as we see in this movie, and there are, of course, the fast running ones. And I've always said that if I encounter the slow ones, I have a shot. I have a good fighting chance. I wouldn't say it's a guarantee. I have a good fighting chance. If it's against the running ones, like you see in a movie called Blank Land, I'm not even going to say the title of that movie, but we know what movie we're talking about. Or Dawn of the Dead, the remake. Then yeah, I'm completely fucked. Because like I could probably run for a good 20, 30 seconds, but then after that, that's it. They got me. I'd just be like, you know what? Bring me to Harambe, baby. At that point, So yeah, they're boarding up the house now. They're trying to get it all safe and everything. And the reason why I started collecting all these, like I said earlier, was because certain DVDs would have the special features and everything. And then lately, I kind of fizzled out collecting them because pretty much every one I run into, there's nothing new. It basically be buying it just to buy it, and and as you guys probably know from my content lately, I don't really buy a lot of movies. Every now and then, I'll pick up a couple here and there, or I'll pick one up off Amazon. Like I think the last movie I bought off of Amazon was what was it? I think it was I personally bought, not part of the Monica monthly box or the Mon box, but I think the last one I personally bought, if I'm not mistaken, like for myself, I bought this movie called Series 7. And the only reason I bought it because I saw it on a Watch Mojo list, and that's the only reason. that I bought it. So yeah, that's kind of why I stopped collecting the Night of the Living Dead DVDs. And besides, I pretty much have all the good ones. You know, I have the Millennium Edition. I have the 30th Anniversary Edition, even though people frown upon that. But you know, whatever. The colorized version, which is actually, you know, and that's another one that kind of people get, you know, upset about. They're like, well, why is it colorized? It looks fine the way it is. Oh, I agree. The black and white looks spectacular, you know, especially for a movie like this. And I think that's kind of the charm to Night of the Living Dead. But the colorized version, released by 20th Century Fox, of all companies, looks spectacular. I mean, it's a great alternative. Like, if you have that one movie-going friend who's just like, oh, I don't want to watch no black and white movie, but you want to show them Dawn of the Dead, well, there you go. Use the colorized version. It looks great. There are a couple moments where it's just like, okay, that looks like shit. But overall, I highly suggest that that DVD. It's fantastic. I love it. Now, going back to the remake, I like that. You know what? No, let's skip over I'm done with the '90 remake for the moment. But I will say that there is another remake that I was jazzed for. There was a remake with Sid Haig from House of a Thousand Corpses, you know, Devil's Rejects, such like that. There was a remake called Night of the Living Dead 3D. They remade this film in 3D, obviously, hence the title. But did not do as good. I think it had a small box office run, and when it came out on DVD, I was all jazzed, man. I think I was unemployed at the time, so I used like some unemployment money to buy this movie. It cost me like $15, and on unemployment money, that's a lot of money at the moment, you know. Oh, sorry, getting another sip of my Coke Zero. This commentary brought to you by Coke Zero. Send me free Coke Zero. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, the 3D remake. So I bought it, watched it on 3D, and the first thing here, you know, I understand that remakes are gonna take a different stance. They're gonna take some liberties. You know, like essentially like the Friday the 13th remake is essentially the first 4 movies rolled into one. You know, but one thing that really bothered me about the remake is that Ben was played by a white man. That really bothered me for some reason because, you know, I grew up with Dwayne Jones, I grew up with Tony Todd as Ben, so when they remade it again for like, what was that, 2000, I think it came out probably around the time I thought of this idea, so somewhere around 2009 or 10, that really bothered me. It was just not a good idea. And, you know, no, you know, disrespect to the guy who played Ben in the 3D remake, but just wasn't for me, and neither was half the movie. I mean, not even in 3D was that good, and Sid Haig played a character that was made up specifically for that movie. There was just a lot of flaws with it that I didn't really, you know, get behind. You know, that one I would say avoid. And there's actually, two? Is there 2 sequels to that? There's 2 or there's either 1 or 2 sequels to that. I know one of them is called. I know one of them has what is it? Andrew Divoff from Wishmaster and Jeffrey Jones from House on Haunted Hill. So I've never even sat down and watched those because I'm just like, you know, if the 3D remake was that bad, then I'm not even gonna waste my time. You know. Not even 3D was all that memorable, and usually, you know, that's kind of the novelty of a 3D movie. It's just like, well, at least a 3D was. I mean, take a movie like Drive Angry. Drive Angry is not a great movie by, you know, I mean, it's okay. Let me put it like that, because I kind of rather enjoyed it without the 3D, but I bet if I would have saw it more in 3D, it would have been awesome, you know? Or another remake, to throw into example here, My Bloody Valentine. I went and saw that in 3D, and I was just like, this is awesome. And then when I thought about it, I was like, wow, that movie wasn't that good. Now that I think about it, I mean, it had some good moments in it, but that was about it. But I like My Bloody Valentine because it tried bringing back the 3D phase. But, you know, what are you going to do? So, sorry for that cut there. I was drinking the rest of my Coke Zero. I think Barbara's having one of her moments here where, you know, she's explaining to Ben what happened here, and vice versa. Basically, how they both got here. Um, and you know what? This is another one that kind of goes under the radar. But believe it or not, and I'll explain this in a minute, there is another remake to Night of the Living Dead, and it was actually made by George Romero. That movie, Diary of the Dead. I know what you're thinking. That's a remake of this? Yes and no. Basically, Diary of the Dead is a found footage movie where everything is caught on a handheld, and it's shot like Cloverleaf style, such like that. And it's basically a retelling of this movie from a different perspective. And it's updated for the time, which was what, 2010, 11, maybe even 12? Yeah, because 2009 I think was Land of the Dead, wasn't it? Land of the Dead, that was another one. That was the only George Romero film I got to see in theaters, was George Romero's Land of the Dead. And the only reason I probably saw that in theaters was because I followed the history of that for a while. Like, I remember when that movie was supposed to be called Twilight of the Dead, which was my favorite title of all the titles that they pitched. I think Twilight of the Dead, or there was another one that related to morning time or something like that, like Twilight of the Dead, something relating to dawn, something like that. I think at one time it was just called Dead Reckoning, which I was just like, that's a horrible title. I mean, it makes sense if you watch the movie, but it's a horrible title. My favorite was Twilight of the Dead. And Ben just had to smack a bitch. Yeah. So yeah, and that's another thing that used to always throw me off as a kid was, this movie came out in like 1968. So an African American man slapping a white woman on in a film like this, I'm surprised that didn't cause hell alone right there. Here we go. We just discovered the radio here, which kind of plays the part of, in most movies nowadays, you always have that character. I guess you could call the radio announcer a character, but you always have that character that's, like, take, for example, Freddy vs. Jason. Freddy vs. Jason, there's a character in there played by, I want to say Brendan Fletcher, I think that's his name. He plays the friend of Will Ritter, or Jason Ritter. Will is who he plays in the movie. But whenever he's on screen, he's there to explain stuff. Freddy does this, Freddy does that, and everything. And that's essentially what the role of the radio does in here. It's explaining what's going on, and, and such, and kind of pushing stuff along to where Ben and later on other characters have an idea of what is going on outside their little fortress here. And, this is not really Night of the Living Dead related, but it kind of is. I actually wrote let me air quote wrote, because I am not a writer by any stretch of the imagination. I actually wrote a somewhat remake of Night of the Living Dead, and back in middle school. When I was younger, I used to write these stories. These like little tiny short stories too, like literally like 2 pages, and I eventually grew them out longer, called the Graveyard of Doom, and I would basically just write it in my free time, just as something to do. Like, if I was done with my work in class or something, this is what I was doing. I was probably, writing more to the quote story, because some of them were just, I'll admit, some of them were flat horrible. But the fourth one I wrote was when I actually started trying, and I basically wrote, like, essentially, it was a Night of the Living Dead, and I didn't realize it at the time. I just kept drawing inspiration from it to the point where I was just like, okay, I'm basically remaking the movie at this point, just with more characters. And I think I had, instead of like, what is there's 5, 6 characters in all in the house. I think mine had like 8 or 10, something like that. And then the next one kind of was a time travel one that kind of went back to the fourth one, but whatever. That's just a nice little fun fact there for you. I actually wrote a quasi-remake to this, because I think the whole idea of the Graveyard of Doom was that me and my friends, we were called Graveyard Chasers, and we would basically solve paranormal, acts in graveyards and such like that. And then in the fourth one is when I was just pushing the quote universe, like there's a fucking Graveyard of Doom fan following the universe further with the the ghoul. I almost said it again. With the ghouls and everything. But I think in that story I did say the Z word quite a bit. And, oh no, wait a minute. Wasn't the third one? Oh no, the third one was something different. And then finally, like I said, the fifth one was about time travel because one of the main characters dies in the fourth story. And the fifth one was us using a time machine to go back and save him. And, yeah. So there's a nice little fun fact for you. I used to write these stupid little, I don't think I've ever mentioned that on camera before, that I used to write these stupid stories. And one of them happened to be a quasi remake to Night of the Living Dead. It's not something that comes up often in my life, you know. Hey Will, have you ever written a remake to Night of the Living Dead? You know, it's funny that you say that. You know, I've tried to sit down many times and actually write my own screenplay, but I you know, I don't have writer's block. I have writer's overflow. I have so many ideas in my head for, like, shit I would love to see as a movie, and I just don't know what to write. You know, and I don't know the first thing about writing a screenplay. Yeah, I could go out and read a book, how to do it, or, you know, get, you know, what is it, Lloyd Kaufman's Make Your Own Damn Movie book or DVD, whatever, but, you know, yeah, just, at this point, it's just like, you know, stuff I do is just stuff I do. Like the episodes of Game On is just stuff I do. Alright, Ben has now just put together this whole house. And it's time for a smoke break now. Ben's earned it. He's earned that smoke break. Basically putting doors on top of doors and nailing them shut. You know? Which is something that amazes me. That, well, I mean, I guess they do kind of explain it. I'm just like, how in the hell did, you know, the ghouls break through their little fortress here? You know? I think this is where he finds the gun, which I think in the remake happens a hell of a lot sooner than this right here. He's gonna find Barbara some shoes because, as we saw earlier, Barbara lost her shoes running from the first ghoul, the Bill Heinzman ghoul. And a fun little fact about Bill Heinzman, he actually went off and made his own type of movies like this. I believe they were called Flesh Eater. I think he either made one and was trying to make two, or made two and was trying to make the third one, and then he passed away a few years ago. So sadly, neither one of those. So one of those two, I can't remember. I think it was he made the first one, but he didn't get around to the second one. He was trying to find funding for it, something like that. I don't remember. I only heard about it because who was it? James Rolfe of Angry Video Game Nerd. He did an interview with Mr. Heinzman. There we go. Yeah, he's found the gun and bullets at this point. And like I said, in the remake, it happens a hell of a lot sooner than this movie does. You know, and here he goes again. He's trying to, you know, because he almost had Barbara. You know, he had her finding some stuff and everything, and you know, then she kind of lost her mind again. Ben had to smack a bitch. You know, so he's trying to hype her up again. I think this is where he tells Ben that, or this is where he tells Barbara that, how we got here. Which fun fact, or fun little piece of trivia. Ben explains that he was at a diner when he noticed something wrong and the ghouls were attacking for the first time and such, and then a semi truck ran into the diner, which was also, I don't know, did it say that at a gas station? I can't remember. I think it was just a diner. A semi ran into the diner and exploded. And if you look at the 2004 remake, when the main character played by Sarah Polley, when she is driving down the road, like on her way to the mall, there's a moment where a car just runs in front of her into what looks to be a diner and it explodes. So to me, that was a nice little callback to the original Night of the Living Dead. And see, again, that, you know, going back to what I said earlier, that's one of those moments that not a lot of people picked up on. Some people did, because it is listed in the trivia for IMDb, and I did not list it. So I wasn't the only one who noticed that little piece of trivia. Now, for a long time, this was a trilogy. It was the Dead trilogy. It was Night, Dawn, and Day. And Dawn actually came next in 1978. And it was released unrated on top of all that. It was originally rated X back when the MPAA still had the X rating. Because for those of you who don't know, a little quick history of the MPAA. The MPAA did not exist. You did not have ratings on your movies up until 1968. I think it was the final year, and maybe 69. But then after that, all movies would be rated on a G, PG, rated R, and X at the time. Which is why we have the term triple X, when it comes to adult films and everything. And in the mid 80s is when Steven Spielberg, actually introduced the PG-13 as like a little in between PG and R. And I think also during the either late 80s, early 90s is when they got rid of the X rating and made it NC-17. But they're essentially almost the same thing. And here we go. We have met Tom now and Harry Cooper. And again, Harry Cooper is like the asshole character. Like if this were a slasher movie, which it is far from a slasher movie, he'd be that character. Everybody would be like, I want him dead. He's that guy there. But like I said, in the remake, he is just, oh god, whoever that guy plays him in the remake, they should give him an honorary Oscar because of how well he plays that role in the remake. So yeah, Dawn came out in '78 and was rated X. And I think in order for them to get an R rating, I think they said 25 minutes of footage had to be cut. And instead of Romero cutting the 25 minutes, he said, forget it, I'll just release it unrated. Which, still, it's essentially an X. Because, most theaters will not carry an X, NC-17, or unrated movie. I think the last example of a movie chain carrying something unrated was back in I want to say 2011 when the I Spit on Your Grave remake came out. AMC actually showed that unrated. You could go see the unrated version of the I Spit on Your Grave remake. And I think before then, I think the last one was Showgirls. Back in '94. That was a wide release NC-17 movie, never to be done again. Yeah. And speaking of the NC-17, one little fun fact about NC-17 before I get back to Night of the Living Dead here. Curse of Chucky, released to theaters, rated R, of course. But instead of going the unrated DVD route, as most DVDs tend to go when they come out on Blu-ray DVD, they were actually going to go the NC-17 route. The cut that they were going to release on DVD and Blu-ray was going to be NC-17. But they eventually decided against it because places like Best Buy, Walmart, I think a couple of Blockbuster being one of them, was not going to carry it. So they knew that would hurt their DVD sales, and Seed of Chucky didn't really have a stellar box office, so they went ahead and did the unrated because there was more of a market for it. So yeah, there again, I'm trying to hit the Dead series here, but Dawn, I believe that there are a couple callbacks tonight in Dawn. I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, I think they're subtle, but they're there. But like I said before, Dawn just fucked me up in the head royally as a kid. I mean, and even to this day, even the special effects. I spaced on what that word was. The special effects were just, they hold up. And even Tom Savini, who did the effects for Dawn, I mean, even he was just like, oh, they don't look, I almost said it. The ghouls don't look, they look gray and green, and that's not scary. And to me, that was kind of the charm of it. That's what really scared me was, the things being, gray and green and such, and then the blood and then the gore in it. It's a good balance. I mean, especially looking at it now, if you would have asked me these questions when I was 8, I'd probably be crying on the floor right now because it'd be like my PTSD. It'd be like my Vietnam, Now, I believe in the remake, I don't think it's mentioned in here. In the remake, the house is actually Tom's uncle, or he knows the person related to the house. I can't remember if that's mentioned in here or not. I'm pretty sure it is. I think they do allude to that, but not as much as they do in the remake. Because I think in the remake is basically like, hey, my house, my rules. There's the wood that Barbara brought earlier, and this right here. And again, for 68 terms, like this part right there, where he's chopping off the fingers and everything. Very well done for 1968. And here we go. We got our first taste of what not to do here, because Ben's aiming the gun, and boom, in the chest, and he's just like, what? I don't think so. Ain't happening. I never noticed that until just now. That look he just gave, like, what did you just do to me? Like, did you just really do that? I never noticed that until just now. And I've seen this movie many, many times. Wait, is he gonna do it again? No. I've never noticed that before, and I've seen this movie I don't know how many times. I've never noticed that look before. He looked at him like, are you really trying to shoot me in the chest right now, dude? Really? Oh my god, that's funny. And this is when it's getting real. This is when it's getting real here. Because they know they're in that house. They know Emil is in that house here. And that's something I should mention. A lot of people believe that the creatures, well, let's use a different word here. The creatures in here just eat brains, and that's wrong. That concept was brought up in the Return of the Living Dead movies written by John Russo. They actually just eat flesh, and that was actually the original title of the movie, was Night of the Flesh Eaters. But I believe, again, I can't remember if it was like a producer or Romero himself. They didn't think it was going to sell with Night of the Flesh Eaters. So they went with Night of the Living Dead because of the oxymoron there, Living Dead. They thought that was pretty clever, and I agree. I don't think, we'd probably be having a different conversation right now if this movie was called Night of the Flesh Eaters. Which I guess kind of works out for Bill Heinzman, seeing how his movie became Flesh Eater. So I guess it kind of worked out for him, man. And we learn later, right here. There's a line here. Okay, this is it right here. This is what I want to mention right here. In the remake, the guy playing Harry Cooper, who they're about to show here. I think they're about to show him, right? Because there's a shot of Ben. You're boss up here. I'm boss up here. Yeah, him. He says a line, and I think it's in this movie too. He says something along the lines of just like, who exactly are you? You don't look like neighbors around here, And that's where he explains where in the remake the line is just said so perfectly. Again, it's one of those lines that I think people would never look over, but in the remake he looks at Ben and he's just like, what about you, Mr. Ben? You don't exactly look like neighbors yourself. That line just gets me every time. It's just so perfect. Which is why I love the Harry Cooper and the remake like 100 times better than the one in this movie. And don't get me wrong, this is the superior movie because, every movie like this, every movie that has these type of creatures in there, owe it to this. They owe it to this. Whether you're 28 Days Later, you're Walking Dead, even though not a movie, television show, but still. 28 Days Later, Walking Dead. What's another very popular one that's not Romero? Blankland, that one. They all owe it to Romero and this movie right here. We would not be sitting here talking about, I would not be mentioning Return of the Living Dead if it wasn't for this movie. I would not be, mentioning 28 Days Later if it wasn't for this movie. So a lot of these movies, to me, owe a lot to this movie. And, and there's references in them. And, a perfect example, House of the Dead. Not a, fantastic movie by Uwe Boll. But again, what is, zing. Okay, anyway. But no, I actually dig House of the Dead for what it is. But my point is that, even in that movie, it's self-aware. It references them. Like, they even use the Z word. I think they say, like, oh, those are they say reanimated corpses. That's what they say. Oh, and during the scene I mentioned, but they said those are reanimated corpses out of a Romero movie. And they're like, what? A Romero movie? Yeah, Night, Dawn, and Day. And then they even mentioned Land of the Dead. They're like, yeah, he said he'll make Twilight of the Dead one day, but I doubt it'll ever happen. It did happen. It just got changed to Land of the Dead, which was great. Dennis Hopper played I guess, quote, villain in there, I guess. And Land is, believe it or not, an extension of Day of the Dead, because Day of the Dead, there's, like I mentioned earlier, there's the storyline of Bud or Bub, the zombie. I said it that time. Dang, I did pretty good though. But Bud, and I think the last time I said it was because of Bud, or Bub. I forgot where I was going with this now. Oh yeah, Bub, who starts to learn stuff and everything, and that's kind of what Land is like. They're fighting back. Like one of them learns how to use a gun. And one of them, learns how to lead, and the other ones learn how to follow, and they start a resistance, so to speak. That's essentially what Land's about, and there's also, some side stories in there. And Land of the Dead is the only one I got to see in theaters, like I mentioned earlier, because, I traced it all the way back to Twilight of the Dead when it was Twilight and Dead Reckoning and so forth and so forth. So when it finally came to theaters, I was not missing this. And I'm glad I didn't, because I think the next one, Diary and Survival, they did not go to theaters. So I was very happy that I got to see that in theaters. I think I stood up and applauded when I saw Land of the Dead in theaters. And you see, again, and that's one of those ones where I was just like, yeah, I finally got to see it. This was awesome. I stood up and applauded. Then when it came out on DVD, I watched it again, and I was just like, okay, there are some flaws in here. But I still enjoy it for what it is. But still, Night's probably, my favorite. Then right behind it would be Diary, believe it or not. Survival of the Dead is probably my least favorite. And that's something else I should mention. Out of all of George Romero's movies, I've never seen a single one that wasn't a Dead movie. I don't think I've ever seen one. And I know of them. I may have seen scenes of Monkey Shines, but I've never seen... Oh, wait, that's not true. I've watched Creepshow. That's not true. Okay. I've seen Creepshow. And that was actually written and directed by him. And Stephen King actually had a hand in writing that as well. Alright, now we have... Yeah, Julie. I believe Julie Cooper? Is that her name? Julie? And we have the little girl here who's, my prime example of Bub here. That again, I'll mention when that moment happens. And there's also a moment that kind of relates to Bub and Dawn of the Dead too. There's two children zombies that, for no reason whatsoever, when they try to attack Ken Voorhees' character in Dawn, they run at him. Whereas, most of the other ghouls just kind of lumber and walk towards them. These two actually ran towards them, and there was never no explanation behind it. And I mean, I guess, if you really want to break it down, the explanation would be that, they've learned that, they figured out that they don't have to lumber around. They can book it, and that's what Bub figures out. Bub figures out he can answer a phone. Bub figures out he can talk. Bub figures out he can pull the trigger on a gun. In Land of the Dead, Big Daddy learns how to use a gun. He learns how to lead. He learns how to get followers. And, it's kind of like an evolution type of thing. Like, they were dead once, and, them being alive and eating flesh, which I guess would be the caveat to coming back from the dead, would I forgot where I was going with that. But I guess eating flesh, would be the caveat coming back. It's that's where I was getting with it. It's kind of like a rebirth. But instead of being a normal person, again, you just eat flesh. And that's another movie I should mention that kind of owes it to Romero, and that is My Boyfriend's Back, which a fantastic movie. If you've never seen it, directed by Sean Cunningham. It's fantastic. Again, just another movie that owes it. And here is and this is something that always got me about the movie. Like he's complaining that there's all this crap on the windows and they can't see out, but like still they're not getting in at this moment. Like at this moment I'd feel pretty comfortable. I wouldn't like what's on the other side of that wood, but Oh man, I'm running out of dead facts here, man. We're only like halfway through the movie, I think. Hell, probably not even halfway through. You know, I've tried to keep it going as long as I can. I've mentioned like 1,700 other movies except for Night, though. But I mean, I've thrown in some Night of the Living Dead trivia as I've gone on through here. And and here, okay, here's something I could talk about with okay. Going back to the DVDs and Mr. Dwayne Jones. One of the reasons I really wanted the 40th anniversary edition was because on that DVD is the last known interview with Dwayne Jones, who plays Ben in this movie, and that was something that is a huge selling point. Was a huge selling point for me, was that, and I believe there was a new commentary. I believe, and plus the transfer. Like I said, the transfer was spectacular. Like Mill Creek is actually releasing a Blu-ray version of Night of the Living Dead, so I kind of want to see that when it comes out to see how well the picture looks. And now we got the TV. Now here we go. Here we have the big explanation scene where we find out what happened, and it turns out that a nuclear satellite, I believe that's what it is, nuclear satellite that was heading towards the planet Venus, right next door to us, so to speak, exploded, and because of the radiation was so strong that it started to bring the dead back to life, the recently deceased in this movie, and anybody bitten or anybody who dies can come back. That's something that's kind of abandoned in John Russo's, no, not John Russo's movie, the remake, I'm sorry, where there's a scene where they shoot one of the main characters, and they're about to shoot him in the head, and they're like, no, he wasn't bit. I'm like, no, that's not what happens, man. That's not the rules, man. That was one of the things about the remake of Dawn of the Dead that really bothered me. And that's a nice little, as we've talked about, Night of the Living Dead has been remade quite a few times. Dawn of the Dead has been remade, and even Day of the Dead has been remade. And you know what? The Day of the Dead one, I still don't like it. And I thought, like, okay, they're remaking Day of the Dead. Maybe I'll finally like it. And after I saw the remake, I was like, I completely understand the original now. Because the new one is just horrible. The remake to Day of the Dead is just horrendous. It is a waste of time. I've probably seen it twice. And it has Nick Cannon in it. So there you go. Double whammy right there. And that's something they mentioned here. It was either on the radio or on the television here. They kind of mentioned mass hysteria. Which always kind of made me laugh. Because the mass hysteria, like, that would mean, what essentially he says in the movie, and they're just like, what, we're all just making this up? Like, we're all just seeing the same thing? And which, shit. That's a scarier concept if you think about it. That'd be the twist of the movie. Hey, get Shyamalan on that. I'd watch that remake right now. Remake Dawn of the Dead, or Night of the Living Dead, and the twist is that they all made it up. I'd watch that. But I just love how it's just like, what, they think we're making this all up? Like, it was Fox News before Fox News, you know what I mean? Zing! Excuse me just a moment, I'm going to reach over here and grab me another drink here, because I am getting a little warm in here doing this commentary for Night of the Living Dead, but you know what? I'm enjoying it. It's, earlier this year, or what is it? Hold on, excuse the soda opening here. And I believe there's a cameo from Mr. Romero here. Where is he at? I think he's in the back there. Is that him? I can't remember. I know. Ah, there he is, right there. That's him, right there, in the glasses, in the hat. That's Romero's cameo right there. Now I'm drinking a Diet Coke with lime. Oh God, what was I talking about before the Dawn remake? Oh, Day remake. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, the Day remake sucks. We'll just leave it at that. I know I was talking about something else, and I'll listen to it on the playback and remember then, but oh well, there's nobody else here to remind me what I was talking about, so you know what, we're just going to keep on trucking, man. Yeah, it was something, I can't remember. Like I said, we're still in the explanation scene here, and pretty much shit's about to get real here, So yeah, in this one they actually let me go back to something I said earlier that I started on, and that was they don't actually eat brains in this movie. They'll bite your arm, they'll bite your neck, they'll bite your shoulder. You know, they may bite your head. Who knows? They'll go for anything. It's the flesh that keeps them living. Whereas, you know, they explain very poignantly in Return of the Living Dead why it's brains, which, you know, that was a nice little thing there. Now, there's actually a novel called Return of the Living Dead, but it's actually like a complete 180 from what the 1980s movie was there. You know?
Judy and I are both from
I think Tom is explaining how they found Mr. Cooper because he's being a dick. Because that's his role in the movie. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm kind of wearing down on the facts here. You know, but I mean, this is one of those movies that is just like, you know, can I really sit here for an hour and a half and tell you stuff that you don't know? Improbable. You know. You know, the fun little fact about this, the day I recorded this, whenever, you know, this goes live and everything, I'm recording this on technically August 11th at like 1 a.m. in the morning. Probably like 1:30 now. What time is it? Let me check the time. Let's really date this. Oh God, it's 2 a.m. in the morning. Holy crap. I had the movie downloaded on my phone. And I have some other stuff downloaded because I have an app that can download stuff from YouTube. And I was watching something and I fell asleep. And I woke up actually listening to Night of the Living Dead, and it just freaked me out. Because like, I think I was having a dream where I was making a type of movie like this, and I was like, why am I dreaming about this? Then I woke up and I heard Mr. Cooper's voice. I was just like, oh God, I gotta turn this off, otherwise this is gonna screw with me royally, you know. And something I should mention here, the little girl here, she's been bit by one of the ghouls out there, and they're kind of checking on her, make sure everything's good here, you know. Yeah, but stuff's about to get real here. They're about to there's her only line in the movie, by the way. You know, I think in the remake she doesn't even have a line. I think they just kind of mention her, you know. And all the most of the Dead movies, or I think all of them except for Survival of the Dead. I think all of them take place in Pennsylvania. I would say Pittsburgh, but I'm pretty sure they all take place in Pittsburgh, you know, or Monroeville. But I think that was just the name of the mall in Dawn. You know, the Monroeville Mall. Which I'm surprised they actually kept the name of that in the remake. Yeah, and you know, the remake of Dawn of the Dead, there's actually a nice little couple. Like I mentioned earlier, there was the diner, the cafe blowing up, and that was kind of a reference to Night. And I think there's a couple of little throwbacks to the original. But I mean, like if you put Dawn of the Dead and the remake of Dawn of the Dead side by side, one's a good horror movie and one's a good action movie. I mean, period. You know, it's an action movie with some horror in there, whereas Dawn of the Dead is a horror movie with some action in there. You know, there's a big difference between the two. And this is where they know they have to team up here. Yeah, they're gonna throw Molotov cocktail. This is how I learned what a Molotov cocktail was. I didn't know what the hell a Molotov cocktail was until I saw Dawn of the Dead. You know, like I didn't understand what he was doing. You know, I was like, how is he throwing down jars of stuff and they're just exploding? And then, you know, I figured out later that that's a Molotov cocktail. You know, and I love that it's called a cocktail, like you just drink it and shit. I love that. See, now I think we're getting close to the climax here, and I'm not gonna talk all the way through the credits because it's 2 a.m. and I want to get to bed. So probably when the ending happens is when I'll probably sign off and just leave the credits here for you. If you want to sit through the credits, like you've never seen credits before or some stuff, maybe I'll cut the credits out. I don't know. Anyway, the TV actually plays a bigger role in the remake. Believe it or not, I believe it breaks in the movie and in the remake, and that kind of. Yeah, here we go. She's making the rags for the Molotov cocktails, and kind of asking Tom why he wants to do this, and they know they have to get out. And essentially, like, if this was, if this apocalypse type of scenario was happening, I mean, that is true. I mean, if you couldn't hold up in there forever unless you had an unlimited supply of either ammo, food, or water. One of those three, or hell, all three for that matter, because, probably essentially, what happens in this movie, your power's going to go out. Then, next would be probably water. Your water would get turned off, or the water would become undrinkable, There's actually a great book about what to do during the I can say it. It's the title of the book. Well, no, because I wouldn't say it in the other one, but the Blank Apocalypse Survival Guide. That's what it is. I actually had that book somewhere. I think it's down in my basement. But there's actually a lot of cool facts in there, about what to do in this type of situation. And basically, they got it right. I mean, you can hold up in a place for a while. It just depends on your resources. And they knew their resources was slim. They didn't have a lot of food. They didn't have a lot of water. They did have a radio, but they eventually lose power. But they didn't know they were going to lose power. But they knew in this proverbial game of chess, they had to make a move. They had to try and get help to that little girl. They couldn't just sit there and wait. And sadly, it was moving a pawn when they're going to move a queen. The effort was futile at that point, especially once the scene coming up that happens. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. Yeah. There's a nice little emotional moment here. Another Romero fun fact here. His follow-up movie to this, not a horror film. Not a horror film. He actually made a drama movie about a man cheating on a woman or a woman cheating on a man, one of the two, and it was called There's Always Vanilla. Not a lot of people know about that movie. People just think he went from night all the way to dawn, and that's not true. I think there was another movie in there too. The Crazies. He did The Crazies as well, which was remade a few years back. Which, again, I never saw the original. Because, like I said, I think other than Creepshow, I've never seen another Romero film. Just Night, Dawn, Day, Land, Survival, unfortunately, and Diary, and Creepshow. And he's had a couple other movies in there. I mean, he has a movie called Bruiser, Monkey Shines, The Crazies, There Was Always Vanilla. I think he didn't he do some episodes of a TV show? Or something like that. But he almost did get back into the genre back in 2000 because he actually commissioned a script for the Resident Evil movie based off the video game. They went to him first because, when you're going to make a movie like this, who do you want to go to first? You want to go to George Romero, of course. But for some reason or another, a producer or somebody at Sony did not like his script for the Resident Evil movie. So he was let go from the project, or he passed on the project because of creative differences, and that's when Paul W.S. Anderson stepped in and took over the reins. But he God rest his soul now, but I would have loved to have paid good money to see the Romero version of Resident Evil the movie. Not even if all the sequels didn't follow, if there was like the Romero version, I would have loved to have seen that version. Here we go. We got the Molotov cocktails being thrown. Wow. And I love how they're throwing them so close to the car. Like, we're trying to fill this bad boy up with, let's throw these cocktails as close to the car as possible. Let's just damage everything before we can fix it, They're about to make a run for the gas pump. Which, that's another little, like, I don't want to use the word caveat. I guess prop would be a better word. That's another prop that's kind of like more in the remake here is the gas pump. It plays a much bigger role than it does in this movie. There's actually a nice little twist on it in the remake. I'm not going to spoil that here because it's kind of like the twist at the end of this movie here. If you've never seen the ending of the movie, I'm not going to spoil it until we get there, of course. But it was kind of like that moment. Like when the moment happens with the gas pump in the remake was kind of like the moment at the end here where it was just like, you've got to be kidding me. It was like the you got to be kidding me moment, you know, or the holy shit moment, so to speak. I love how they still haven't figured out. Oh no, I think they figured it out, but they're just not doing it. To shoot him in the head, like just shoot him in the head. Take care of the problem. Stop shooting him in the chest. Stop wasting your bullets. Shoot him in the head. Get what you need done. I mean, they're slow moving. You have a good fighting chance. They don't like fire, obviously. You know. See, I like how Harry, you know, and this is where you kind of think that Harry is turning over a leaf. You know, he's just like, okay, I'm in it to win it. He's throwing the cocktails, you know, and he sees him going, and, you know, you think he's gonna, you know, he's in it to win it now. He's on the team. But as we show later, he becomes the turncoat yet again. But this was another scene as a kid that I did not see coming. You know, these days when I watch a movie, I can look at something and be like, okay, I know what's about to happen here. It's just like when I watch WWE or anything, I can probably tell you what's going to happen before it even happens. But this moment here, I'll admit, as a kid, I still didn't see it coming. You know, yeah, let's leave the torch on the ground. Yeah, that's when Cooper. That's when it was just kind of like, oh shit. You know, Cooper was just like, wait a minute, I don't think this is a good idea here. You know, they're like, all right, we're gonna try and move it. You know, but this is where it goes horribly, horribly wrong. You know. Okay, 2 drinks down. We're almost there. Yep, and then here we go. See, now he's slowly losing that faith. You can just see it in his face there that he is slowly losing the faith on this plan, which is kind of why he probably pulls the move that he's about to do, is because you know, he lost hope. You know, he thought he'd be safe in the basement, and Julie's jacket that is her name, isn't it, Julie? And then boom, there it is right there. And when I first saw that as a kid, I was like, no fucking way, dude. Are you for real? You know, and it's one of the rare times in one of these movies where somebody, you know, like their downfall did not become because of the creatures. You know, their downfall is because of, you know, I guess, piss poor production, I guess would be the best way to put it. You know, piss poor planning produces piss poor production. You know? 7 P's there. Now Ben knows he has to get back to the house, otherwise he's screwed. You know, and I think like pretty much this plays out the same way in the remake, just a little bit different. You know, and there's actually a couple moments I think in the remake that reflect. I think earlier we saw the girl grab a mouse or some type of chipmunk or something from a tree and ate it. And I think that happens in the remake as well. I believe there's a moment where one of them did almost the exact same thing. And this, you know, this is where Ben, you know, he's like, he was just gonna leave him out hanging. You know, this is where he was gonna go turncoat and everything. But he says, see, and he saw it. See, look at that face right there. You know, I'm really getting a more better appreciation of Dwayne Jones in this role than anything. You know, now he comes over to help, you know, but at this point, you know, that look he gave, if looks could kill, man, you know, Dwayne Jones done killed him, man, but he's about to give him a receipt for it here, you know. It was like a day late and $1 short, you know, like he came over and helped him, but Ben saw what he was gonna do if he didn't bust through that door. He was gonna leave him out there with those things. Boom, punch in the face, boom. Yeah. And you know, Harry Cooper, the direction of him in the remake is actually a little bit different than in this movie. You know what? We'll get to that when we get to that moment here. But there's actually, like, I mean, pretty much up until now, it's pretty much the same thing, you know, in the remake and this one right here. But it's a little different. We'll get there. And you know what? And that actually reminds me. I said in the late 80s is when they got rid of the X rating. That's not entirely true. I think it was around the mid 90s, because the original cut of the Night of the Living Dead remake was rated X. And they had to cut footage from it to get it down to a rated R. And here we see the ghouls picking the bones, quite literally, of what was left of Tom and Julie there. I believe that's her name. I'm really spacing on her name for some reason. You know what? I tried doing this without looking anything up, but that I have to look up because I keep calling her Julie, but Julie Cooper just keeps reminding me of the OC, and I have a feeling I'm saying her name wrong, and I've been saying it wrong this whole freaking movie, and I'm really gonna be mad if I'm wrong. Let's see, Night of the Living Dead, 1968. See, look at that right there. They're just chowing down, man. You know, and again, I think this faxman said to death too. I'm pretty sure of it. But all the ghouls in this movie, all of them, they were paid $1 and a box lunch, and I believe a T-shirt. Judy, that's her name, Judy. Yeah, I knew I was saying her name wrong. No, wait, no. Judy's the girl downstairs. Sorry, who's this right here? It was Tom, Helen, Harry. Yeah, okay. And Judy's the girl downstairs. Yeah, no, it was Judy. Yeah, that's it. Yep. It was Judy. Wow, I've been saying Julie this whole freaking movie. You know? If you heard that loud noise, that was my phone being put down. My other phone. I have two phones. I'm actually recording this whole commentary on a phone, if you can believe that.
You know anything about this area at all?
See, this is where Barbara's just starting to lose it. You know, again, she kept fluctuating. You know, like, okay, you know, I can, you know, this is messed up. And then Ben kind of hyped her up. Then she lost again. Ben had to smack some sense into her. And she's, you know, came back again. But now this is where she really starts to lose it. She's really losing grasp of the whole situation. She's just losing it. And when she sees Johnny come back is when any hope. See, now this is actually one of my favorite parts because I think it's either coming up and I either just missed it or they just, because I'm watching this with no sound, so I could talk over it easier. Oh no, it should be coming up. Yeah. There's a part where she's like, oh wait a minute, it's coming. I'll mention it in just a few seconds. It's coming here because she mentions like they have a car. And she was like, Ben says, are the keys inside? And the way okay, wait a minute. She just said, wait a minute. Here we go. Yep. Here we go. This line right here. Hold on. I always loved how she delivered that line. It was just like, you won't be able to start it. Like, you know, I can tell you where the car is, but there's no point. You know, I always loved that. It was like one of my favorite things about it. And here we go. We are getting to the climax now. Here we're almost home, baby. We're almost home, you know. We're like the golf ball in Happy Gilmore, man. We're almost there, man. You know. But so far, if you guys have listened this far into the commentary, I appreciate it. I know I've mentioned probably 70, 100 facts that were probably not Night of the Living Dead related, but again, there's only so much I can say about this movie that hadn't been said before. You know, and if you've never heard any of these facts before, then, hey, I'm glad I could be here. And if you made it this far, then I commend you. And if you make it to the end, then, hey, you deserve a gold star, my friend. Or, friends. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if it was just one person listening to this thing. But this is one of those dream projects that I had earlier this year. I did the Ode to Artist V1 video, and that was a video that sat inside my head for 2 years. I knew everything I wanted to do in that video before I made it. So yeah. So this is another one. I'm finally, checking off the to-do list, so to speak. But this one actually took me a bit longer to do. And, I would say there would be others, but, not all the movies I would love to do a commentary track for in the public domain. I would love to sit here and do a commentary track on Freddy vs. Jason, which, again, another fact that's not Night of the Living Dead related, but about me. I actually recorded a commentary for Freddy vs. Jason on cassette tape, baby. That's right, you heard me. I did a commentary on cassette tape for Freddy versus Jason. You know, I think is that tape still in the player? Because I actually still have that tape player. I think that's the tape in it. I don't know. I can't remember. But yeah, hey, a little fun fact about commentary there. I believe that the news announcer here, Chili Billy or Billy Chili, something like that. He was actually both in this one and the remake. He was one of the very few people in this one to be in actually both the remake and the original. Yeah, Chili Billy, I think is his name. It's not Chili Willy. Yeah, it's Chili Billy. Billy Chili. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's Chili Billy now. Now that I'm saying it out loud. And here's the famous line, like, they're dead. They're all messed up. Which, again, that's another one of his lines earlier, like the Barbara, they're coming to get you, that I did not expect. One of the lines that we'd still be saying in this movie is, you know, they're dead. They're all messed up. You know? At least in Dawn, it was, like, more obvious what lines were going to be said and which ones were not. Like, we got this by the ass. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. I mean, those actually, you know, make a little bit more sense, but they're coming to get you, Barbara, and they're dead. They're all messed up. Or two lines in this movie. Oh, yep, here we go. Shit just got real. You know, the ghouls have turned off the power. Which, I mean, if you get enough of these things out there, then yeah, eventually they're going to hit something where your power is going to go out, because it's never really stated if power went out all over. And, you know, they are in a little farmhouse in, you know, in the middle of nowhere, so it's not like they have neighbors and can see, you know, like, oh, is it just us? Is it, you know, but, yeah. But we're about to hit the climax here. We're about to hit the M. Night Shyamalan twist before Shyamalan, so to speak. And again, here's another you know, reference to Day of the Dead before there even was a Day of the Dead, and that was them figuring out, like, okay, wait a minute, if we pick up these rocks, we could probably get in here a lot sooner. And boom, there it is right there. You know, they're like, oh, okay, you know what, forget this claw and stuff, we'll just throw rocks at it until we get in. Which, you know, again, you know, it just shows that they're even though this just started happening, like, this is apparently, like, you know, the first night of the Living Dead, so to speak, they're already evolving. They've already figured out how to pick up stuff, throw it through the window so they could get what they want, you know? Whereas, you know, Bub and, like, you know, Day of the Dead, you know, they had to keep telling them, you know, pick up the phone. Hello, Aunt Alicia. Hello, Aunt Alicia. You know, they had to keep telling them that. Whereas these ones, they've already figured it out. Because in Day, they were trying to domesticate, I guess, would be the best word, domesticate Bub. Whereas, you know, in this one, they're just figuring it out on their own. And I think in Land, he figures it out by his own, too. Like, Big Daddy figures it out on his own here. But, yeah, we're heading to the climax here, and this is where Cooper becomes the ultimate, you know, asshole. And, you know, he takes the gun, and that's it. He's done. He's done. He's telling his wife to get in the basement, because that's where he wanted to be the whole time. He kept telling him, hey, let's get in the basement, but, I mean, like, it's one of those things where, like, you know, it's black and white, and no pun intended to Cooper and Ben, but it's black and white. You see both sides. You know, it's, you know, yeah, Cooper could have had the door barricaded and everything, but Ben's right in saying if they do get through the door, we're screwed. There's no second option out. You don't ever want to have your back against a corner if it's the last corner in the room. You know what I mean? Which is something I kind of look at too. Like, I would at least need a second option. You know, say Barbara's losing it. I mean, like, at this point in the game, you know, Cooper's just been shot. And this is a perfect example of just, like, no matter how you die, whether you're bitten, whether you're, you know, you fall down the stairs, you know, whether you're shot, you're coming back as one of these things, you know? And there we go. There's Karen. No, Karen's the wife. What's the girl's name? I forgot. Again, as many times as I've seen this movie, but again, it's 2 a.m. in the morning, and I'll be honest, it's been quite a long time since my last viewing of this movie. I couldn't tell you the last time I watched this. So this is the first time I watched it in a while, and of course I had to watch it with no sound. So I think the better plan would have been to maybe, you know, watch the movie first, then do a commentary. That probably would have been the better plan. And there's Bill Heinzman right there again. This little callback here. Helen's her name. Yeah, Helen. So then the other one downstairs is See, and this is that last ditch effort from Barbara. Like Barbara's just like, all right, if I want to live, I gotta fight. But then the okay, now this is the part I was alluding to earlier. There's the little girl. She has come back. Okay, she was eating her father, but then for no reason whatsoever, we're using Bub again as the example. She grabs that right there and proceeds to stab her mother, as we see here. Which she does, which again, she has this. I mean, I'm assuming, the ghouls, they have some type of rage inside them, which makes them want to eat flesh and such like that. But this one, the little girl, she still had some type of knowledge in her head to pick up something and stab her, rather than bite her or anything like that. Where in the movie, she actually does, in the remake, she actually does bite her mother in the neck, and the blood actually falls onto the same weapon that she used to kill her in the original, which is a nice little moment in the remake. And Bill Heisman, man, didn't they get him early? See, there we go. That's it. Barbara's done. She's like, what, Johnny? See, and that was it right there. And like, what an ironic twist. Just imagine this was happening. Of all of the creatures to get you, it was the one of your dead brother. Like, what a shitty way to go out. Like, it's one thing to go out during like this type of apocalypse, like these creatures and everything, but the fact that like somebody related to you died, became one, and then took you out like hours later after he died, like that's a shitty end. Now from right here, does he? Oh no, he doesn't do it in this one, does he? Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. So yeah, okay. Like I was mentioning earlier, Cooper and the wife are in the basement here, and Cooper's story actually plays out a little differently in the remake. In the remake, he actually escapes to the attic, and he escapes to the attic and hides there. And it wasn't until in the remake, when Barbara returns, is when he shows up again and was just like, oh, you came back to help me. And him being the asshole that he is, Barbara just cuts her losses and kills him right there. So his story ends a little differently in the remake. And again, I think out of all the characters in the remake, again, he was my favorite, and I do like that story in the remake better rather than in this one here. Now this is where Ben figures out that like, yeah, this door does hold. All he had to do the whole time was just camp out in here till whenever. But you had to come down here. You had to come down here and take care of some business here, because the mother is about to come back to life, even though she was. Oh yeah, Cooper too. Oh yeah, because she was eating him when she was down there. And Ben finally gets the satisfaction of killing Cooper there. Whereas again, in Ben's story actually turns out a little different in the remake too. Like, Ben actually hides in the basement, and I'm not going to mention the twist at that point, but Ben actually does become a ghoul, and Barbara again puts him out when she returns later, because she escapes in the remake. Barbara is actually the heroine in the remake, which was kind of cool for the time. But coming up here in just a moment here is the holy shit moment of this movie. I mean, especially once you hang out with all these characters for the last hour and 30 minutes here. Everything that they've gone through, the ghouls attacking the house, him boarding up the house, him fighting for the food, water, arguing with Cooper, finding the radio, finding the TV, just everything. And then the moment coming up here happens. Now, what always kind of got me about this scene, though, there is one weird little flaw in this scene that I don't get, and that is, they know he's in the basement. Okay, they knew they were in the house, so they all huddled around outside the house until they could get in. So in the morning now, they're gone. So why did they leave? Because they knew he was in the basement. So like I don't think they would have left as easily as they did. But you know, hey, I'm not a filmmaker, so I mean, what the hell do I know? And here we go. We got the search and sweep teams coming to the quote rescue here. You know, which yeah, that's something I don't think Dawn kind of touches on either. Like what the hell happened? I mean, because I wouldn't say it's a sequel to Night, but it's obviously an extension of Night. But they don't explain like what happened because it looked like they had a good system going. You know, they had search and sweep teams. They're going around. They're taking out the ghouls and everything like that. But in Dawn, just all hell breaks loose again. You know, and in Day, the Pittsburgh is like a fucking ghost town. So what the hell happened? You know, it looks like they had a good system going here and everything, but you know, I guess something went wrong eventually. You know, here we go. We got the dogs coming out here, which I think that was for sniffing for survivors here. You know, and there is the Chili Billy again there, which. Again, and some people are just like, well, why is he still hanging out with these guys? Like, does he need the story that bad? I was like, I don't think it's the story. I just think he wants to live. You know, at this point, you know. But here we go. Here comes the big thing in this movie, and again, probably the most famous line in the movie, next to "They're coming to get you, Barbara." But we're a couple. We're almost there. Yeah. Got the dog sniffing for survivors there. Now see, Ben's waking up in the basement and he hears this. He hears the copters outside. He hears the dogs. He hears people. He realizes there's nobody or nothing, I should say, in the house. And yeah, see, there's him noticing it right now. You know. And if I'm not mistaken, Dwayne Jones died shortly before Dawn of the Dead. Yeah, there we go. We got some there. And Ken Forhey, actually, who played the lead, and Dawn actually spoke to Dwayne Jones before taking the role to see what it was like and everything. And that's what kind of, you know, convinced him even more to take the role. So... there you go. There's a fact that actually relates to Night of the Living Dead. I went through like the history of the MPAA and everything like that. I don't know what else I can freaking do. So yeah, Ben's gonna go check stuff out here. He thinks he's got a good chance of being rescued. And there we go. There's some stragglers around the house. Again, I'm just, look how many were there in the big climax just there, where, like, how many of those things there were. And now there's, like, a couple stragglers outside hanging about and everything. And, I don't buy that they would have left, but, I mean, I guess in order to push the story, it's one of the things, like, gotta push the story, Here we go. And they find the house. And hopefully, nobody knows the ending here. I mean, if there's somebody watching this commentary that doesn't know the ending, well then, hey, buckle your fucking seatbelt, man, because you're about to be fucking shocked. Especially, see, Ben's checking out stuff. He's like, oh shit, I see people outside. I could probably get some help. He's like, oh wait, what's that noise? See, look, that guy right there. He's like, wait, I see one. Ben's making sure, it's actual help and everything, and then game, set, match. Everything that he fucking fought for. The food, water, TV, radio, Barbara, Tom, everybody, and there's the famous line, there's another one for the fire, and that's the end, and Ben dies. Ben dies in the remake as well, but like here, it was like, when I was a kid, that just blew me away, like no pun intended. To the the headshot he just received, but like I was just like wow, and that was like one of the first times as a kid I watched the film, and I was just like, wow, everything he fought for was essentially for nothing, like it blew me away. Judith O'Hare played it. Carl Hardman played her. Helen, Tom and Judy. Oh wow, Judy was played by a Judith. That's interesting. And I'm trying to see what the little girl's name was. I want to say it was Karen. I could be wrong though. I don't know. But the line he just said, there is another one for the fire. That's actually the title of the documentary on the 40th anniversary edition. There. Oh, okay. They don't. Bill Heinzman. I know that. Chili Billy. Yeah, that's his name. Chili Billy, right there. You know, Mark Ricci, Lee Hartman. Okay, well, you know, that's it. I'm not going to sit here through the entire credits. I think I've given you guys more than enough here. So if you've listened all the way this far in the commentary, I appreciate it. This has been a long dream of mine to actually sit down and actually produce this project here. So, yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and, you know, maybe I can do it with some other films just without the actual movie playing if you guys enjoyed this. So yeah, until next time, I am the Artist Version 1. Again, I really thank you for listening to all of this if you did. And until next time, I am out.